Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about platform pioneers, startups that started with platform engineering. I'm your speaker, Johnny Dallas. I'm CEO and co-founder of a company called Zeet. Zeet makes building IDPs simple for teams of all sizes. But you're not going to be hearing from me too much. Today we're mostly going to be hearing from Ibrahim Ahmed and Anas Abu Alaban, who have joined me as early stage CTO founders who have started their companies on top of platforms. Now, if you're new to the platform engineering community or you've been around for a little while, you'll know that there is a platform engineering survey that happened in 2023 where more than 83% of platform engineers said that they work at companies of greater than 50 people. Both these companies, Leap and Tartiel, are well under that number and have started with platform engineering and had tremendous impact because of that. Today, we're going to hear mostly from them. So let's hear about why they chose to talk with us today.
I was fortunate enough to start Leap using a developer platform, which means that my team hasn't actually experienced a lot of the pitfalls of not having a developer platform. But prior to Leap, I ran some pretty large teams at larger companies, and the dissatisfaction can be pretty high, especially because teams feel siloed, where you have one team that's building the product and another team that's shipping the product to production. And the latency between these two teams can make it feel like you're walking in mud. And when you're a developer or a product engineer that just wants to deliver value to users, it really sucks to have so much friction within your own organization. And so by giving that product team the ownership that they need to be able to see their code go all the way from their editor to production, they're 100 times happier. And so is the team that was maintaining the infrastructure, because they don't have to feel like they're being pulled in 10 different directions by 10 different teams.
I've worked at AWS and I hate AWS and I hate using AWS. Some cloud providers are easier, some cloud providers are not. You know, at the end of the day, there's so many services and tools and resources that, you need to learn and use. Being able to just abstract that away for like the key components that you want is definitely very helpful, and minimizes the context switching and, the amount of time I need to spend learning how to actually deploy things and learning all the different you know, naming and use cases. Like, how do I know what Elastic X or Elastic Y is? There's like so many Elastic X and Elastic Y, and what's it called with Google? What's it called with Azure? I don't know. I don't care. I just want to focus on basically deploying like the stuff that I'm building.
Great. I think we heard a little bit there from the two CTOs who will be joining us. But at a high level, platform engineering helps startups in a number of ways. One of the big pieces is they're able to focus on hiring builders and focus on hiring the kind of core product pieces of the start of these engineering teams. They're able to improve engineer satisfaction, as Ibrahim mentioned, across the whole team. And overall, they're able to iterate faster. We'll talk about a couple of ways that we see this. We see teams are able to experiment quicker thanks to the early adoption of IDPs. We see teams are able to fight back against cloud vendor lock-in, and we see teams that are able to drive deeper engineering alignment across teams. So let's focus on the first one. Let's talk about how IDPs drive focus on hiring product people. Really, IDPs allow startups to share the burden of infrastructure across the team, so you have less DevOps overhead per engineer, which is critical for these early teams.
Having a developer platform allows us to focus on hiring engineers who are focused on the product and not on the infrastructure. So that means we can hire more front-end engineers, we can hire more API back-end engineers, we can hire designers. We anticipate it'll be quite a while before we ever need someone who can be dedicated to infrastructure. And even as the CTO of Leap, I still have enough bandwidth to maintain our infrastructure needs.
Yes, we would require our own basically DevOps team. And we actually tried to do this ourselves using things like AWS CDK or Terraform and other tools. And it was too much of a maintenance burden for like an individual like myself just to deploy and manage and, fix all the bugs that would happen, not just in the code, but also in the deployment as well. And monitoring all that was pretty difficult. So having a development platform took that abstraction away and made it simpler for us to basically focus on our products.
Now, beyond enabling early stage founders to focus their hiring strategy on the business critical components, IDPs tend to make engineers happier across the board. By providing a common language for all engineers to interface with, they're able to work together much more cohesively. So let's hear some examples.
So engagement within the team, we all speak to the same language, right? We're all looking at the same views. We all deploy our services the same way. So we all have a common language and understanding of our infrastructure, our services, and how our code goes from our editors all the way to our production environments. And we feel like the barrier to entry to deploying a new service, updating a new service, or even monitoring a service has gone down significantly, which means that a lot of team members who might have been intimidated by the life cycle of their code are actually now very eager to see their code reach production, and they feel empowered to ship, which is great, because for us, we want every developer to feel like they're having an impact, and now they really do, and they feel it every day because they own the life cycle of the features that they ship. Is we've essentially created guardrails now where prior to having a platform like Zeet, if we were to put our developers within our cloud environment, um, not only is it possible for them to get lost and break things, but the RBAC available in cloud providers is extremely tedious to maintain. And so we feel much more confident with our developers coming in and adjusting things at the platform level, like in Zeet, not only because we can control what people can see and do, but because the interface that our developers are using is significantly simpler in such a way where they don't feel lost and they know exactly what to do, which means that there's a much lower chance of them making a mistake.
On top of these benefits so far, IDPs enable quicker experimentation. For startups, there's a constant balance between building quickly and staying on top of the cutting edge new technologies, and you constantly have to tread that line. IDPs really help you balance across those when you can take an experiment from idea to MVP very quickly, and then taking that experiment, if it starts getting some traction, to production extremely fast. Let's hear some examples.
Having a developer platform like Zeet allows us to experiment very quickly. And the reason why is that the overhead to running an experiment is incredibly low. Everything we need to run an experiment is available at one click, and we have all of the visibility we need via the dashboard to know how the experiment's going. And it's very easy to scale the experiment as well if it starts to go really well. And actually, one of our core features, the Remix feature, started as an experiment. We didn't have billing, we didn't have database persistence, but we were able to build the core service within Zeet very rapidly, see if customers wanted it, and then added billing and database persistence after.
Yeah. Instead of doing what's called like I think people call it click ops and like some different like consoles or platforms or whatever, you basically just do like 2 clicks now like develop a platform where you specify like the Helm chart or the container that you want to run, and then you don't need to worry about the infrastructure. If you need to scale and optimize things, those options are like freely available for you. Like the customization is there. But for quickly like experimenting and prototyping things, it allows us to just test things out, make sure we're not spending too much time and too much, compute resources as well to see how things work. And then, once we're ready to like scale and decide to take things into production, you know, it's just a few clicks away where we change, different configurations or different cloud, providers as well. See which one is like more optimal, which one runs best on.
So Anas started to touch on this, but one interesting trend that we see is IDPs help some of these teams that have started from scratch actually adopt multi-cloud from day one and fight this constant cloud vendor lock-in. So let's hear a little bit more about how these two founders think about building directly on top of the cloud provider versus now going through an IDP first.
Building directly on top of a cloud provider versus a developer platform can be incredibly intimidating, very confusing, and more often than not, takes a lot more time. Cloud providers are trying to serve all use cases, whereas for most teams, specifically us, we have very few set of services we need from a cloud platform. And so going to a developer platform that makes it easy to use the features that we need saves us time, makes it so that there's a smaller surface area for mistakes to be made, and gives me the confidence that my team feels empowered to experiment without needing to spend too much time learning a platform that they may never come back to.
We just go with whatever is the cheapest and the best. So 2 clicks and we're off to like trying out a different provider. For example, we had one provider that that had a limited GPU collection and another provider that had a more varied GPU collection. So we just moved to the other cloud provider. Took us 2 clicks, didn't take much to like do the migration. So instead of taking like a few days, took us like a whole day only just to do a failover in production as well and leverage, better GPUs, better prices on different providers.
Because we're deploying to a common infrastructure layer, all cloud providers provide compute. And as long as they provide compute, we can shift our workload. And so we feel that we have zero cloud vendor lock-in, and even less lock-in at the Zeet layer, because like I said before, all the services we built are built on Docker. And so we can just take our containers elsewhere if we needed to.
Now, one of the constant perennial challenges of any engineering team is focus. There's a million things to do, and especially in a startup, it's hard to know exactly which one is the most important. We've seen many teams leverage IDPs to really drive that engineering focus, especially across teams. Let's hear more.
If you don't have a good developer platform, standing up a new service is not only a technical challenge, but can sometimes be a buy-in person challenge. And that's really slow. Humans making decisions can be really difficult. But if you encode those decisions, which is what we've been able to do with our platform as a service, um, it goes from days, weeks, months to minutes and hours, because every service that we deploy via Zeet is already vetted through the pipeline that we've established as to how a service goes from inception to deployment. And that involves everything from code scans for security, stripping of secrets when they're shipped to production, standing up the actual service and making sure that it has the right resource allocation so that it can satisfy the scale that we're expecting. And so the process is trimmed from weeks and months to minutes and hours, if that.
So when I used to deploy stuff with like AWS CDK or like manually on like AWS ECS, uh, I remember first time it took me about a week between like learning how things worked, learning how to deploy stuff with CDK. And that was just like getting things up for like development and testing things out. It took us like another week to actually put things up in production. With, development platforms, basically, it's literally a few clicks. You specify like a Docker image or a GitHub repo, and then, you have your infrastructure all provisioned for you, specify domain name, specify your compute resources, and then that's all you need.
Now, in closing, IDPs help startups in a variety of ways. They help them focus on building product, the most critical part of the day one operations of building a company. They help make engineers happier and bring more engineers into the fold of being able to touch infrastructure, which is critical in this cloud native world that we live in. And ultimately, it helps engineers iterate faster and entire engineering orgs iterate faster. I think the big thing that we want to leave you with here is IDPs can be adopted by teams of any size, big or small. And so we hope to chat with you all more in Slack. Thank you.